I'm pulling up the Facebook right now.
YouTube's online. Facebook online, YouTube online, Periscope online.
Yeah, it's good.
Hey everybody, it's Rob. We're just about to get started with this week's episode. Less than 10 minutes left. While you got a couple of minutes here, why don't you go check out OTheAnthem.com. It's where you can find everything OThe Anthem, including the merch store, the podcast, and all of the videos. Open up a new tab.
Anchor.fm/OThe Anthem is the place where you can get direct links to all the podcatchers you use to listen to our show every week.
Did you know we record every episode live on Facebook? Of course you do. But make sure that you're liking the page and turning on notifications so you get notified when we go live.
We make a ton of video content between the podcast, the short films, Heretics. YouTube.com/OThe Anthem is the place for it all.
And of course you can find me on any social network at Robert N. Cheek.
And me at LegendCB5.
And you can find the podcast at OThe Anthem on all your social networks. Oh, wait, sorry.
But I think if anybody is definitely in place for a massive reshuffling of what a police department looks like, especially a large city police department, it's the LAPD.
Garcetti has taken $150 million and reallocating it to social programs.
That is equivalent to about 5% of what the LAPD budget was. We were talking about
of the increase this year to the budget.
They're not doing the increase. Thank God. They originally Garcetti was going to give them $1.8 billion. He decided to stick with the $1.1 billion they're currently making, and has decided to cut $1 to $150 million of that, to which police officers all across LA County, from their homes in Simi Valley, are screaming bloody murder, saying you don't care about us. And the LAPD here, the videos have been coming out of police responding to protests of police brutality with police brutality, and I feel like there's been nowhere quite like LA and New York in the video evidence of this, because New York PD's got people like ramming SUVs through crowds. LAPD's got people doing literal fucking drive-bys of people standing on the corner.
Yeah.
Like,
who are just wearing masks, and I get it. Any other time it might have been a protest.
It literally looked like a filmed scene. Like, it was so beautifully shot, showing the LAPD SUV pulling up to the corner, a cop with riot gear sticking out. Was it like a paintball gun or something?
Yeah. So if you guys haven't seen the video,
what was it? One of those
airsoft?
Yeah, something like that.
No, so it's a paintball gun. So as the vehicle is riding past the camera guy, the guy in the back seat pops out the window as if it was there for filming.
Yeah.
And doesn't even notice the camera, and they slide to a stop at the corner where he peppers the people standing on the corner.
Yeah.
So the reason they use a paintball is because, so they call them rubber bullets, and the news has been saying non-lethal rounds, but they're actually technically referred to as less lethal rounds.
Yeah.
Because as we
when
learned,
used properly, which is shot at the ground, not directly in somebody's face.
As we've learned this week, when you catch one of those in the dome, it can still kill you. If you catch one in the chest, it can still kill you. So another less lethal, but actually probably more like non-lethal weapon, is a pepper bomb, which is about like a paintball, and just has capsaicin or inside of it. So when it hits you, it bursts, and then you get hit in the face with all pepper stuff, and that acts as pepper spray, but it's more controlled. Instead of spraying an entire crowd, if one person's getting rowdy, you hit them in the chest, and it also gets on their clothing, and it's supposed to keep you from winding up, because every time you try to like clear it from your face, it's just coming out of your clothes, and you basically have to leave to go change. What it's not meant for is sliding to a stop and then hitting a crowd with like the rapid fire professional paintballer, like rounds, which is what the guy did in the video. So
Garcetti is just ridiculous.
There's nothing that justifies
if
it.
there's anybody who deserves to be fired,
Yeah.
Besides probably the cops, but we don't know.
Stephanie Rawlings-Blake.
Stephanie Rawlings-Blake.
God, yes, please.
Because right now, all she's doing is, I want to be governor one day, damage control.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm going to show up on television and say whatever it takes at that exact moment to one day be elected governor, and hope that people forget this entire thing ever happened.
Within 3 hours, I'm going to meet with the protesters and tell them how my heart is breaking, and then I'm going to go meet with the FOP and do a press conference where I say I back my police.
Yeah.
Both of those things cannot be true. You cannot both be with the protesters and with the police.
Well, as we touched on 3 weeks ago on the
Sure.
episode with the dead fish,
Yes. She walks that fine line of...
Baltimore City does not have a great, despite being a majority black city.
Yeah.
I believe it's majority black at this point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Almost solely black, really.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not solely black, because there are a lot of white neighborhoods.
I always forget the city is as big as it is.
Yeah.
Like, it goes way out to almost here, right?
Yeah. Like, Hamden isn't majority black.
No.
But, West Baltimore is majority black. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
East Baltimore. Also
Right.
majority black.
but it has, throughout the entire history of it being a city, certainly post Civil War,
Yeah.
has not been up with the times on racial issues.
Yeah, and when we were talking about the housing problem a couple
Yeah.
episodes ago, that was not ancient history. That was
The 70s.
relatively recently. Yes.
So I think just in general, if I was a black person who lived in Baltimore City, I would be pretty upset that we still aren't on the level that we should be.
Right.
Certainly something that I think should be tackled.
And it's made me think a lot about home, especially with this being the 2-year anniversary of the uprising and everything that went on with that. And something that's sort of been sticking with me recently, and I feel like I needed to get it off my chest, is how has nothing changed? Like, nothing's changed, and everybody's holding on like it can be the good old days, that we don't have to have a brand new day. And we're all just we're trying to make Groundhog Day happening, and it's not happening. Like, what I don't understand what the cause of that is.
Well, I remember when I saw pictures coming out of Baltimore on the first day of the uprising, and I was super excited about it. And I said, Arab Spring has come to America. The people have finally had it, and they are going to say, we are confronting the police. We're not going to let this happen anymore. And if there was a place it was going to happen, it was going to be Baltimore. Like, just a crowd that has had 60 years of shit piled on them.
Yeah.
And they are not going to take it anymore. And
right.
If that's not a simile for the Arab world, there is no better one. And then nothing. I mean, there was a couple of days of day of violence, a couple of days of protest, and then it all went away. And 2 years later, people are still dying. The homicide rate is up in Baltimore.
We hit over 100 between. Gone Summer doc just came out yesterday, and Corey has thoughts. In addition, the Oscars are postponed. Theaters are going to come back soon with Tenet in theaters soon. So we'll talk about that a little bit. In the news, COVID cases are going way up. Supreme Court makes a huge ruling on LGBTQ protections, with Gorsuch leading the way. And then we have a whole lot of Trump talk, including is he having a stroke, Mary Trump's book, and Bolton's book. A whole lot more. You don't want to miss a thing. Come join us right now at the Oh the Anthem podcast. No, we haven't forgotten about you. This is Corey, and this is the Oh the Anthem podcast.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's Rob. Welcome to episode 323 of the Oh the Anthem podcast, coming to you from the hashtag OTA LA Studios, high above the 110 freeway in downtown Los Angeles, California. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you for listening on your podcatcher of choice. The easiest way of doing that, anchor.fm/Oh the Anthem.
Absolutely. So, lots of stuff to get to this week, Corey. Let's jump right in at the top. A little bit of, God, let me find the splash. It's been so long. Sportsball. All right.
Sportsball.
Yeah.
Feels good to be back. And I mean, it's not actual sports. Let's be clear about that. But, it's things that are sports adjacent.
I'm going to let you bury the lead because then I'm going to come back at you in a little bit. But go ahead.
Well, how so?
Auto racing is a sport. And auto racing is bad.
Technically.
With a vengeance.
Yeah, we'll get to that one.
Yeah.
First, though, with all the different sports trying to come up with their ways of moving forward with actually playing games, it's important to realize that even when these players are at home, hypothetically, they're not safe.
You're never safe.
A couple of members of the Cowboys and the Texans each contracted coronavirus, including Ezekiel Elliott.
Is he the name player?
Yeah.
Oh.
So of the he's the biggest name of the people who got sick.
Ooh.
But it's making it more clear that whenever sports do come back, we're going to have to deal with people just not playing because of coronavirus. Like, at some point during the NBA playoffs, LeBron James is going to get sick. I don't know if it's LeBron James, but I'm saying, like,
whoa,
someone like LeBron James is going to get sick, and then we're going to be like, oh, the Lakers have to do without LeBron. Like,
why are you wishing that on him, Corey?
I'm not wishing it on anyone. I'm just saying that the law of large numbers is indicating that at some point somebody is going to get sick, and it's going to be impactful. Mm-hmm. And the most impactful player that I could think of that would affect their team is probably Giannis would probably be more, but
I don't watch the NBA, so I have no idea.
LeBron, at the very least, has Anthony Davis to help cover things a little bit in case he does come down with something. But I don't know how to talk about people getting sick without, like, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so like generally speaking, if you're talking about sports, you wouldn't wish an injury on somebody. Mm-hmm. But if it's like the type of thing like it's random people are getting it, then it's not like you're putting yourself in, like, nobody's putting themselves in like more danger of getting it by, you could just run into somebody and get it, Yeah.
I was trying to explain earlier the way that the statistics work. We'll get into that when we get to coronavirus down a little later. Before that, though, the other sports franchises or sports leagues are trying to come back as well. I think most notably, the MLB has such a long season. You figure, Corona's going to impact. They'll find a way to get back. But oh boy, does baseball not find a way to let us down, because it's not even about Corona, honestly, at this point. It's a labor dispute that they're involved in.
Corona is just the wrench in the works that is making all this more difficult. So we've kind of touched on it up until this point, but Baseball's collective bargaining agreement was set to expire at the end of next season.
Yeah.
So when this whole coronavirus situation happened and we realized that games were going to get missed, there were moves by different entities within baseball to try and figure out a way to go forward with playing without necessarily having to pay the players the full amount that they're due.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
That's
there's
capitalism, baby.
not to be uncommon with a baseball labor negotiation. There's been some bad sportsmanship going on both sides. Most notably, the owners who sort of made an offer that was like, all right, so if we play 50% of the season, players get 50% of the cut. And then they're just like, okay, well, that sounds like a reasonable thing. And then all of a sudden it's just like, oh, yeah, but if fans don't come back, then we're going to cut that down to 20. It's just like, whoa, 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 whoa.
Whoa.
Why were we to expect that fans? Why would you even offer that?
Listen, Tom Cruise gets paid if nobody shows up to the movie. You know what I'm saying? Like, the talent always gets paid.
Right, exactly. People are going to watch it on TV, so I don't know. I get paid for the TV, not for the fans in the stands.
To be fair, have you guys not been seeing the news stories about, like marble racing leagues doing super well? People are desperate for sports. Just start playing again. People will watch. Don't worry about it.
Figure out a way, because I mean, like, number one, the owners have to get over the fact, like, both sides in this. In baseball labor negotiations over the course of history, it's always been contentious, and they've sort of found some peace here in the last couple renegotiations of it after the 94 strike.
Yeah, the 90, and for those of you who aren't old enough to remember, 94 was real crappy. Like,
yeah,
they cut the season short, and then we didn't have a 95. No, was it 93 that got cut short, and then 94 we didn't happen, or 94, 95?
Oh God, no.
Nonetheless,
yeah,
there was a half season.
We didn't have a 94 World Series.
Yeah,
so,
and then the next season just didn't start.
It was going to start, and then
with
replacement players. Yeah,
replacement players. That's right. Yeah,
because baseball said we've reached an impasse, so we have to get new players in here, and they filled them up with replacement players, and then Sonia Sotomayor, future Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor, argued that the owners were negotiating in bad faith.
Yes.
To which the owners were like, "What?
That doesn't sound like something we do."
And then they lost something like $700 million in legal fees not to get a single thing, like, because they went back to the same agreement they had.
But it's been peaceable since then.
It's been pretty peaceful.
Yeah.
The last labor renegotiation that happened, though, the players, at least from the players' perspective, took it on the chin that time. So there was sort of a thing going in where it's just like, okay, we're getting a little bit more this time because we took it on the chin last time.
If we have to strike, we'll strike.
Right. And coronavirus is giving a lot of players the opportunity to sort of see a way out, hypothetically. Mm-hmm. So, like, it's one of those things like baseball could demand that the players come back.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know exactly how it works with the contracts as far as how much they get paid or something like that, but they could just say, come back to work. We're starting.
Yep.
And, hypothetically, players who are, on the higher end of things, the Mike Trouts, the Aaron Judges, those types of players who might not want to risk their health in this sort of thing could just say, not playing this year.
Yep.
And then they don't get paid for the year, but it basically backdates their contract one more year until they come back.
It backdates their $multi-$100 million contract where they'll get they'll end up having to have an extra couple years of Bobby Bonilla money when they restructure it inevitably at the end.
But yeah, I mean, like, it sucks because you hope that they'd be able to find some sort of way around this. And the part that really kills me is that, like, the owners always cry poor. And I understand that the costs of running a baseball organization are, I'm sure, a lot. Mm-hmm. Like, you have staff and you got to pay for upgrades on the stadium and repairs and all sorts of things.
And supplies. I mean, that beer is $18 a cup. I have no idea what it must cost them.
What they pay, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like you could get a better price on it.
You're buying in bulk, right? Like, go to Costco, maybe. I don't know.
They go buy 6-packs and pour them into the keg individually.
I'll just take a can. I mean, just give me the can.
Just give me the bottle. Save you a step.
No bottles. I don't trust most sports fans with glass bottles of anything.
The thing that's really disheartening about this whole thing is that I feel like the players want to play,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like the owners, would like a product to be on the field, but neither one of them seems to have visualized the path to that being the case. Like, if a rule I've always been told in negotiation, or is a good starting place, is like you take the people individually, right? You say, what do you want? What is a win for you?
Yeah.
And then you hear what they want, and then you hear what the other side wants. And then you can sort of understand that if we start the negotiation from the place of this unrelated thing that doesn't get us both to this middle place, then it doesn't have a place in the earlier parts of the negotiation.
Yeah.
Get to the consensus as quick as you can, and then you can work out the variant details at the end.
When I was negotiating as a lawyer, that was the general rule.
Yeah.
Your guy has 10 things. My girl has 10 things. Where are we? Is there anything here that we're close on? And let's start there.
Yeah.
And inevitably, 7 out of 10, it was just a little bit of tweaking and we can get there. Now,
Split the difference between these 2 points.
Yeah.
And yeah.
And now we have 3. Okay. But now the list is small. And every time we get to a stagnant place, we look back and be like, hey, we started with 10.
Well,
now
and
we're
then-
down at 2.
And not only that, but like, there's some point along the way that maybe you gave in on because it wasn't as important to you, but
Yeah.
it was important to them. And you
Yep.
sort of said like, hey, listen, I'll give you this one in good faith. Like, hey,
Later on.
we're both doing things for each other.
And nothing's final. I can
Yeah.
still we can take it to the bench if we want to go all the
Right.
way. But
In the meantime, like maybe you be a little bit more courteous on this one point that's really important to me and
Yeah.
blah, blah. The baseball negotiations, from what I can tell, has been largely all the meaningless stuff. Like
let's figure out what we
they're
don't
trying
agree
to
on
figure out
first.
the CBA for next year
Yeah.
now because they're in this position where it feels like they should be renegotiating the whole thing right now. But, and that just leads to them going like, well, how much are we going to afford for catering every week? And it's just like, that's not important. We can figure that part out later. Like,
And the problem is their owners have always cried poverty. So
Yeah.
they feel like they're coming from a strong point of saying like, hey, actually in a place of poverty now.
yeah.
And the players as labor are coming from a position of being like, hey, we are in danger coming to work. Labor is very important. So whether or not either of them has a powerful position, labor always has a more powerful position,
Yeah.
generally speaking, because,
Well, I mean, Peter Angelos isn't strapping on cleats and going out there.
yeah,
so.
and you can get 100 replacement players to come out and try out, and none of them is going to be at the level of which your basic major league player will be.
Right.
There's a reason those guys are not playing in the major leagues already.
There was one replacement player who really broke out. Do you want to guess who the one replacement player was?
No.
Who had a sustained major league career afterwards? Kevin Millar.
Oh, I
Yeah.
did know that. Yes. Yeah, it came out of the strike. So, yeah. So, how many
I'm
players?
sure there's other ones too. I'm sure somebody's going to like...
He's like the infamous
Somebody's
one.
going to email and be like, Gary Sheffield was one of those guys too. I'm just like, fuck, I forgot.
No, he played 92.
No, I know. I'm
remember
just
Gary
saying.
Sheffield.
I'm just throwing some bigger name. He's going to be like, you idiot, you forgot.
But how many replacement players were there?
I mean, there was enough to fill all the rosters of all the teams.
And
And one of them was able to continue playing for a long period of time. Yeah.
So yeah, if it was, and I don't want to say the NBA is in a different position, but I think the difference is you and I couldn't make an NBA team. People would
Right.
have fun watching us play basketball.
Yes.
And 3 guys who are in just as good a shape as us.
Yeah.
Now, would they pay $118 for floor seats? No.
Yeah. Not
But
that
it would
level.
be fun. It would be fun, and I think that's
Just like the circus is fun.
yeah. I think that there's a little bit of a difference in that. First of all, there's a way smaller number of NBA players, and there's a field of players out in the world. I mean, and one and Big Three have both shown us that there are a lot of really great NBA and basketball players who don't play in the NBA.
I would say that more than anything, I think there's NBA players who are people who are on the bubble more of being NBA players than there are baseball or, because baseball has way deeper.
You have to have a huge.
You have to
lineups.
have, multiple minor league teams put together of people. The people who are not on a minor league team currently are usually not on a minor league team currently because they're just not good enough. Like they're just on the outside of like
This just occurred to me, Corey.
Yeah.
Maybe they're working as a waiter somewhere because all they need is a pair of glasses, and then that fastball will really become dangerous. So,
I'm trying to figure out a way to correct your joke and make it about Major League.
oh, is he not a waiter?
No, he was in jail.
Oh, he's in jail. That's right.
Where'd you spend last year? California penal?
That's right. Or longest yard. I mean, NFL
Yeah.
could just replace them with California Penal League football players. I would watch that. All right, I would watch that. So,
Or like I still maintain that the best way of handling some sort of penalty is NHL. You go to the box for 2 minutes, right?
yes.
I think that there's a way. Baseball probably wouldn't work like this, but almost any other sport could.
Play a man
in a
down
way.
in
Play
baseball.
a man down. Holding 15 yards, you lose your left tackle for a play. Like
Things will get
you're
interesting.
Just down one.
Yeah, things will
See
get
how-
interesting.
And you lose a receiver, and it's like you're down one eligible person. Like that makes a difference.
Or you're
Down
down,
a cornerback.
Cornerback, and then it becomes interesting.
Or you're down a kicker. Holy shit! You got Doug Flutie drop kicking it.
Your kicker has to takes a flop. They put him in the box, and you're just like, all right, who's up next? Chris Davis want to come in and kick for us too? I
Kicks
don't
it
know.
out of bounds on the kickoff. It's just, God damn it! I'm gonna miss my next point.
He's
after.
out. Yep, he's out. But so sports will be coming back at some point.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I just want everybody to know NASCAR is back. They're already running races. They ran 2 weeks, I think, or 3 weeks to empty tracks. And they're coming back at Talladega with 5,000 fans. Now,
I would maintain that NASCAR is the type of sport that you could probably run without fans in the stand all the time.
you could, but part of the culture is people in the stands.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, there would be the purists who miss it, but I'm
And
saying, like, as far
listen,
as the racing goes, like,
I think Talladega seats like 170,000 people.
Yeah.
So the 5,000 that they're going to let in will basically be empty.
But I'm saying, like, if I'm at a baseball game and I yell at Mike Trout,
Yeah.
he can hear me.
Yep.
He might not pay attention or anything like that, but if I'm yelling all game, at some point he's going to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
I can't yell at Jeff Gordon as he drives by it at
You can hold up a
150
sign.
miles. He's not going to see that shit.
How fast can you turn your sign? Yes. What is it?
I'd have to
It's-
throw it on his windshield.
You got to hit the delta shift so that you're moving at the same speed as him, so that it
Just
seems to
knocking
freeze.
out the poor gentleman
Yeah.
next to me in their Confederate flag
Listen,
outfit.
I've seen you move. You could just run down the side of the track and. But so, and Corey and I were discussing this in the pre-show that NASCAR, funny enough, has kind of positioned itself to be the next generation of sports.
Yeah.
Because while baseball may not have a season this year, and then also may not have a season next year if this CBA thing continues to, or maybe not year after next.
Yeah.
They may end up going on strike for a while. NASCAR is basically saying, what do we got to do to get young people out here and interested?
Yeah.
And you had reminded me of the virtual race that they ran earlier this year.
Yeah, they did one basically on Twitch, I think, where all the racers were on Xbox and did the Daytona 500 or something like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, what I heard from the news is that NASCAR had a huge spike of people watching that virtual race.
Yeah.
And particularly, they had way more young people tune in than ever before. And they had way more diverse people tune in than ever before. Because NASCAR is kind of white and male.
Yeah.
Old white male kind of sport.
Yeah.
And for NASCAR to see an event where young people of different colors started showing up, it really got them excited.
Yeah.
So once all the protesting started and everything like that, they jumped in both feet first. We're gonna go harder than anyone else. We're gonna be the trendsetters on this one.
And if I was to tell you, Corey, that there is a sport that banned the use of any derogatory language, especially that towards race or ethnic origin,
Right.
Any symbols of hate, What would be your first guess as to the sport that had done that?
I mean,
Well, how about this?
I would probably say baseball.
How far down the list is NASCAR
Last.
on that list? Yeah.
NASCAR would be behind that sport of two people who slap each other really hard in the face. Like, that would be the only sport that I would think would have.
Now be careful.
You'd have to go all the way down the list.
People could switch away from us and go watch that on the Ocho right now. So be careful.
I reminded them that's out there. Now they're gonna.
But yeah, I mean.
Why are you listening to this shit? Some guy named Rusty's getting slapped right now.
And some little dude is about to take out a really huge guy because it's always the little guys who, like, for some reason, they get that arm. He's like
literally named David, too.
Just hold your elbow and just get that arm moving and just knock the guy out.
Like the Ichiro of slap fighters.
Yeah. But I said when we were talking before, I actually watched NASCAR growing up. I watched regularly. I had favorite drivers. I did the whole nine. I bought merch with drivers on it. However,
did you have the jacket with like all
didn't
the
get
patches?
the jacket.
Okay.
No, I didn't get the jacket. I don't like being a billboard for products. For a while, I wore Nike because I actually liked Nike, and then I found out about the whole, Southeast Asia sweatshirt or sweat.
Say
shop
what
stuff.
now?
And I was just like, oh, okay, so I'm not gonna wear Nike anymore either. And
then I became the piece of the resistance, and then
I was gonna say the
Kaepernick thing.
For a while, the only thing I would wear is because I still like Nike shoes. I would wear black on black Nikes, where even the swoosh was black, so
Obscured,
you couldn't really see it. I would say for that, but I never went to a race, not because I don't like the sport or because I wouldn't want to see it in person, because I don't like the other people who go watch the sport.
Right.
And I think what I said was all the people I hated from my high school are NASCAR fans and go to NASCAR races. And then even besides that group, all the people who are okay in my high school, but, still live where I grew up, where I don't want to live there anymore.
Yeah.
They're the rest of the people who go to the NASCAR races. So it's just like, and at most racetracks, you have 15 seconds of action followed by 2.5 minutes of nothing. Yeah. So it's really a time for you to hang out with the people around you, which is great if there's people you want to hang out around
if you like the people.
But as you pointed out, the guy next to me might be wearing an entire 3-piece suit made out of a Confederate flag.
Yeah.
And that's not really a gentleman I want to get to know, because my guess is he's not going to have a lot of depth into the happening issues of the world.
I might be sitting next to the literal boss hug.
It maybe so. Actually, it's the guy on the other side of me who's wearing the 3-piece white suit with a cowboy hat. Confederate guy, not even at the level of boss hog. So surprising, but also not. They found that they could get interest from young people and people of color.
I mean, I think that's the part that really shocked me. Not that like, I figured if they what's hard about racing is that, like, you have cameras in the car and you hear them talking to their like pit crew and stuff like that, but it's not like you're really getting a character of who, it's not like Dale Earnhardt's cracking jokes or anything like that. He's very serious about the task at hand.
It's all the before and the after race stuff.
Yeah.
And everybody likes a winner, man. And that's why nobody gave a shit that Roy Ciricelli or whatever his name is said he wasn't going to drive anymore because he can't have a Confederate flag on his car.
Bye.
A guy who at his best finished 39th and in a field of 43, by the way.
Wow.
Yeah. And never won anything, never placed at the pole, never nothing. So bye. But I think that it's an important...
I wonder if the team manager was like, no, don't go.
I think that there is a meeting of two things. There is NASCAR finding out they could get young people of color to watch.
Yeah.
And also, I do believe that the upper echelon of management and ownership at NASCAR are guys who are old enough who remember this sport started from people who were running from the cops.
Yeah.
That is what NASCAR, stock car racing, NASCAR, National Association of Stock Car Racing, or Stock Car Auto Racing. And it used to be you couldn't take a car on the track that wasn't at the outside looking exactly like the stock car.
Yeah.
And the whole point was, what can you do with that thing that makes it look street legal, but it ain't street legal? because that's what moonshiners did. It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, so I got a Ford Pinto.
So
with
they could drive by looking like it's a normal.
Ford Pinto.
Yeah.
454 big block, and it's pushing 550 horsepower. So like the cop switches that light on.
Cop goes by, officer.
Yeah. But he turns around and hit the lights, and then it's nothing but like back wheels, front wheels up, wheelie down the street. And I do think that there is an element of people who said when the sport first started, maybe that the element of the Confederate flag truly was about rebellion against authority. But that has
Well, I mean, like literally, if you had no connection to the South, your reason for having a Confederate flag on you was because you wanted to rebel in some sort of way.
or because you hated black people.
Well, I mean, yes,
And
but I mean,
I
like,
would say that in the South more than the North, the Confederate flag was a statement about your belief about race.
right.
In the South, I know people. So Talbot County is about to remove the statue of the Talbot Boys, and it's super controversial because there's a lot of people in Talbot County who great-great-granddaddy fought for the Talbot Boys. And the
Yeah.
Talbot Boys were a group of guys who left Maryland to go fight for the Confederacy. And the whole point was, for me, it's history. Not me personally. For those
Yeah.
people, they're saying, for me, it's history because my great-great-granddaddy went and fought for them, and I still consider myself a don't tread on me libertarian, anti-government guy.
Right.
So we have the same ideals, except one of those ideals for your granddaddy was keeping slavery around. That's why he went to fight for them, and why he was upset Maryland didn't leave the Union. So,
I mean, like all I can ever think of is there's a band I really like called Turbo Negro.
Yeah.
And they're like a Finnish death metal band. And, and most of the world, when you hear Negro, it's black.
Yep.
So the band is literally like Turbo Black, which sounds like a really killer metal band.
And it's black death metal, right?
It's more pompous, but it's certainly hard.
Sure,
Anywho,
yeah.
I have one of the shirts. I got one of the shirts at the show, and then I realized after I got it, I'm just never gonna feel comfortable wearing this in public because it's not worth it that somebody knows that I like this band enough to think that I might be a racist. Like,
But if you travel to Finland,
yeah, or if I
Maybe
went
you
to
wear.
their show, then I
you
could
wear
wear the shirt
Yeah.
because then people would know.
and you change in the parking lot into the shirt and out of the
Well,
shirt.
sweatshirt before I go in.
The only guy with a sweatshirt in LA in the summertime. Like, I got things to hide. I don't know what to tell you.
I try to hide my Turbo Negro sweatshirt by keeping the sweatshirt on and the hood up.
But no, I think that there's a level of people who realized at the upper echelons of NASCAR that our fan base has been these angry white old guys.
Yeah.
And those guys are going to die off at some point. And why are we holding on to these things that they care about, but we really don't? What we really care about, let's be honest, is money.
Mm-hmm.
And finding a group of fans that's going to take us into 2050 and 2070.
Yeah.
And if we can find a way to do that, let's jump on it. And they did with both feet. Firing a driver who I heard the story on the way in, so I don't even know what driver it was, but apparently firing a driver for using a racial epithet at one of the races since they've been back, letting Ray, whoever his name is, quit rather than letting
The racial epithet, by the way, was the N-word, though.
Yes, it was the N-word, just to be clear.
Yeah.
And I believe that it was used in regards to Bubba Wilson, who is the only black driver in NASCAR.
Right.
And it wasn't said to him, but it was said about him in the presence of someone else. So someone got fired. Ray quit, and he was like, "What, you think you're going to hold NASCAR hostage? No, bye.
Yeah.
We'll get a new driver next year." No Confederate flags. They're apparently going to police racial epithet usage in the stands, meaning if they hear you shout something, you will be escorted from the track.
NASCAR is taking more steps than Fenway Park ever willing. Like, that's, and that's the thing too. Like, for a for a Southern sport, which has such like a veneer of racism that seems associated with it, like, nobody ever said the same thing about, people who go to Boston and constantly get heckled from the crowd of racial epithets and like, it's like people. I feel bad sometimes for people who are the good people of the South who are like lumped in with like people's preconceived notions of it, and I feel like NASCAR has a lot to do with that too.
But They're stepping away from it.
Yeah.
And I don't hear baseball saying things like, if we hear you scream something racist from the green monster, you'll be escorted from the ballpark.
Right.
Which, by the way, they could.
Yeah.
They should.
Yeah.
You're America's pastime. Now, it did take you a
Well, I
long
mean,
time
like
to let
Adam
black people
Jones.
play,
Adam
but-
Jones said like he heard it all the time.
Yeah.
And then like I can't remember, like I think the Red Sox put out some sort of statement like, we make sure that our fans don't do that. And then like the next game it happened again. And he's just like,
No.
happened again.
Yeah,
It's
still
just
happening.
Like, we can't really police everybody. We don't know.
Yeah. And we have Tony chiming in from Facebook. And Tony says, do you think there will be a price hike due to limited seating? Drivers are isolated. Yes, NASCAR drivers are isolated, so for them it was the easiest sport to bring back. But keep in mind that they're not isolated either. They have a pit crew of 12, generally speaking, so those guys are around each other all the time. And there's another group behind the scenes of about 20 or more, and they're all in contact with the driver. And the way the racing works is it's 4 hours of extreme sports. It's 125 degrees, and you need to have all your facilities and all your attention. You start feeling sick in the middle of that, most guys aren't going to pull over. They're going to say, I can push through this.
Yeah.
So testing is also important for them. But yes, there will most certainly be a hike on prices at Talladega. I can't say for sure that they won't clear more selling 5,000 seats than they would selling 170,000 seats.
They basically get, the cost of whatever the sky boxes are for
Yeah, for the whole thing.
5,000 probably fills up their luxury boxes. And that's
I
probably
also-
what they're thinking.
I
would imagine.
haven't seen that they're not going to allow luxury boxes where it's like, hey, you guys have all been together quarantined. Sure, we'll give you a box and you can buy the box, as well as 5,000 grandstand seats.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, too. You want an egalitarian sport? There are two levels, really.
Rich and poor.
It's luxury box and grandstands. Now, your grandstands go from like...
Can you be in the infield, too?
In some places, yes.
Oh, okay.
Talladega, yes. Martinsville, no. Martinsville is a half-mile oval, and there's no room inside. But you might be at the top of the grandstands versus trackside, but essentially, it's all the same thing. It's like baseball. There's levels to it, and the price may vary somewhat. I think there's less variance at NASCAR than there is at baseball.
Yeah.
Because what is the Yankees behind the home plate seats?
Oh, the legend seats or whatever.
Lexus luxury box or
Yeah.
whatever, like 11,000 a seat.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You're not going to find that in NASCAR. But there's also not a place like that. Like maybe at the line, but you can really see action happen.
There's not
anywhere.
like a 50-yard line
Yes.
for NASCAR.
Yeah. So it's a super egalitarian sport. So I encourage people to get into it. So long as they stick to this whole no Confederate flag and no racism thing. But before we move on from sports, you wanted to talk about the Long Gone Summer doc.
Oh boy, did I.
Yeah.
ESPN has been doing documentaries to fill the time of not having sports, which is fine. I've been enjoying them. The Jordan doc was really nice. I felt like it was pretty fair, all things considered. Getting Jordan's involvement, I think people were worried it was going to be a Jordan infomercial, but I felt like they covered everything with a fair lens, you know? Maybe you let Jordan get the last word on a couple things that maybe he wouldn't if you were independently editing the thing, but
He's Michael Jordan. It's about the 98 Bulls.
yeah, it's fine. It's
What do you
fine.
want?
Yeah.
Tony Kukoc is the center of this Bulls documentary.
They did the Lance Armstrong one, the 2-part Lance Armstrong one, which I liked a little bit better because it was basically calling Lance on all his bullshit all the time. And like, it seems like Lance is trying to be honest, but this is also the guy who lies all the time, like constantly. So,
I like Icarus better. No matter what it is, Icarus is better. This is a better documentary.
and now this Long Gone Summer one, which is remembering the good old days of the home run chase in '96 with Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire.
I thought for sure you were going to say 1926, back when there were, was it Mantle and Lou Gehrig?
So
Was that 26?
60 would have been Maris and Mantle.
60. That's what it is. It was 61 asterisk.
Yeah.
That movie. Let's do a
Right.
documentary about that year.
Well, that there has been documentaries about that one,
Oh,
and the Billy Crystal 61 movie is really good too.
Absolutely is.
And I feel like you learn a lot about what it means to be Roger Maris at that point, because Roger Maris was going through fucking hell because nobody wanted him to break Babe Ruth's record. They decided, like, after he passed 154 games that they were going to, like, partition off Babe's record because he did it in 154 games, and Maris was going to have to get this asterisk on his record. All because baseball was very short-sighted about, like, how they should perceive the history.
So wait, are you saying that in that documentary and that movie, they addressed the controversy kind of right up front?
Oh, like in the Billy Crystal movie?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so I mean, I can only imagine how much of Long Gone Summer was talking about the controversy.
No, they kind of, at some point about halfway through, they mentioned seeing Andro in the locker, which was a much bigger story than they played it out in this doc.
As I remember,
It was more of like somebody saw Andro in there, and it's like, what's Andro? And then they asked Mark McGwire, and he's just like, yeah, I did it. And then they moved on to other things.
but as I remember, that ended up going to Congress. It was such a big deal.
Yes, and
yeah.
with about 15 minutes left in the movie, they start getting into maybe these guys were on steroids, and maybe Congress is getting involved. Maybe everything you know about baseball is a lie now because this record is no longer true.
But thanks for watching.
And it's only going to get worse because Barry Bonds is upset about it, so he's going to start taking steroids now and just blow all the records out the water. What bothers me is that this is not me hating Mark McGwire or Sammy Sosa or anybody who used steroids. If I was a baseball player of that caliber and pretty much everyone was using steroids, I couldn't imagine that I would not do it. And I would imagine that most of the players, there's still players who are doing it right now, and they've just figured out a better way of hiding it.
So I've been playing a lot of Fallout 4 recently, and one of the storylines about the old world in Fallout 4 is that there were two leagues, and essentially one of them was like, anything goes. We just want to see a dude who runs like a 1.340. That's what we want. Just whatever you want to take to get you a 1.340, you do that. And then the other one was like totally clean. So it kind of like it split the world into, if you want to see exactly what a human is capable of, given all of the science and technology that we have,
right,
you can see that. If you like the game in its pure form, it's less impressive, but it's more. And I mean, there is something to be said for that.
Well, I mean, like, take McGwire, for instance, right? Say he never took steroids. He would still probably hit a lot of home runs.
Yep.
He was still a very just naturally big, bulky guy.
He was a Bash brother before the steroids.
If you look at rookie year or USC Mark McGwire, he's still like a lumberjacky looking guy. He's just thin. Like he's not like super muscle on muscle.
He wasn't Mr. Adonis.
Yeah,
it's just not like all up here.
It's not like when you see him in the Cardinals uniform and he looks like fucking who's the guy with the ox?
Paul Bunyan?
Paul Bunyan, yeah. Looking Paul Bunyan-y.
He's wearing a 3X jersey on top and the small pants.
Yeah. God,
chicken legs.
The fucking pajama look. I hate it. Anywho, I have no problem against Mark McGwire specifically, right?
Yeah.
I have a problem that nobody stopped any of these players from doing it because now I can't look at what Mark McGwire did and accurately be able to say, because what's great about baseball is no matter what, to a degree, you could say Tris Speaker and this player are very similar because they both have this number of hits in their career. Yeah. And, you can break things down and you can have arguments about oh, well, he wasn't good against lefties. You got to go to Ted Williams for, and so on and so forth.
Derek Jeter and Cal Ripken both played short. They went to third. They're comparable players.
Baseball is filled with these little things where you could have discussions and, there's obvious blind spots where there weren't black players for a long time. So yes. Babe Ruth's career isn't necessarily the same as Chris Davis's career for that reason. But
it's easy to be the best when you don't let other people play.
Yeah, and you also have 10 teams. It's easier too.
Yeah.
But more or less, you have a sense of what a really good baseball season is because of numbers that are kept. And when there are things that cause the numbers to jump out of whack, you take that from us.
Yeah.
And I feel like what I would have preferred was a examination of steroids in baseball and the fact that this was basically the fulcrum point between where we were before and where we were. I mean, there were players who were taking steroids before this point, but it didn't erupt into people challenging the home run record. That almost felt like unbreakable for a while there.
Even cheating,
People would get to 50, and everyone would be very impressed. Like 50 home runs was a monumental deal.
but cheating in general, because the Astros didn't take any performance that we know of, any performance enhancers, but you've now skewed the records because
Right.
now we're looking at your season and saying, "Oh, look how amazing that team was." No.
Yeah.
You cheated your way to that amazing record. And, oh, what a great eye that guy has at the plate. No. He knew what pitch was coming.
I mean, nothing changes the fact that if you're a professional baseball player who can hit home runs, you know, there's a way that you could get hot for a while and hit more home runs than you're used to.
Yeah.
And if you are using steroids and your swing is just a little bit faster and your reaction time can be a little bit more, perhaps it makes it like your everyday normal is you on hot streak
Yeah.
without, you know? And maybe the hot streaks that you get from that point on are even accelerated.
Very hotter.
Yeah.
Yes.
But like, you know, if Mark McGwire never took steroids, he might have broken the home run record at some. He might have hit 62 home runs in a season. I wouldn't put it past him. You know, Ken Griffey, who by all accounts wasn't a steroid user because he always was just
Looked
like
the same.
skinny Ken
Yeah.
Griffey Jr. And it was just a beautiful swing that just rocketed these things into outer space. But like people were like, he's going to break the record. He could do it. He had 56 home runs. Like, what do you?
Yep.
He's there. He can do it. So I don't know. I just really feel like this doesn't help. These PR related documentaries where it's like, oh, we're gonna fix Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire's image so that they can be part of baseball again. It's just like they could come back. I don't care. I want like baseball to admit, like, I just want there to be like a wing of the Hall of Fame where it's just like the complicated years, like.
But
everything here is certainly a stat you can use, but it's complicated.
If Sammy and Barry and Mark can come back, Pete needs to come back too. Because
the betting on the game, though, has always been
the ability for one player to impact the outcome of a Major League Baseball game versus gaming the entire home run race based on performance-enhancing drugs.
But at the very least, you could say that with people who are using steroids, which is part of the reason why I don't blame people who did it that much. I mean, like, I'm disappointed. I'm not mad. It's just like...
Thanks, Dad.
It's like I just wish that you know, Barry Bonds has to go against a pitcher who has steroids in his system too. Like it's not like he's the only one. Like Barry Bonds figured out some sort of way to juke the system. Like
And Pete Rose says he never bet on games in which he played.
Yeah.
And there was that NBA ref who said he never bet on games that he played.
But then he admitted he did.
Did he?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't remember
See,
that.
that's the problem with Pete Rose is like I want to, like, as far as accomplishment and worthiness of being in the Hall of Fame, yes, like, obviously, there's no doubt he's the hit leader. Like,
yeah.
That makes sense. But it doesn't make sense because he just constantly does whatever he can to get close to getting in, and then he blows it up himself. Like he'll be really good and like, you know, like, oh, I promise I'm on my best behavior, and then they'll invite him to the All-Star game and he'll be drunk or something, you know, and then it's just like, you made a fool of yourself, and now it's one step forward, two steps back with Pete Rose all the time. And baseball doesn't want to put themselves in the situation where they crown him and then have him do something that blows up in their face, you know?
How many MLB players have been accused of domestic violence who are in?
Oh, I'm sure. There's awful people all over the place. But
yes, there is. So
but
you're drawing really weird lines. That's all I'm saying.
I'm saying the lines are determined by the Baseball Writers Association of America. That's who decides who goes into the Hall of Fame.
Well,
and I mean, like, there's people, you know, so somebody said didn't vote for Cal Ripken on the first ballot Hall of Fame.
Because no one's ever been...
because at that point, there had not been a unanimous pick. And they're just like, if Babe Ruth isn't unanimous, then neither is Cal Ripken.
Yeah.
Like, he's not better than Babe. So I'm not going to vote for Cal Ripken, even though he's obviously a Hall of Famer, because of this point. Like, I can't control that, you know? I mean, he's still winning the Hall of Fame. This one guy's vote meant nothing. But, like, you know... you have to appease the powers that be in the Baseball Hall of Fame more than you do others.
All I'm saying is, when I'm running things, Pete's in the Hall of Fame and the baseball writers go to the guillotine. That's it. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of the whole thing.
They can just not be responsible for it. They don't have to die.
That's not how it works. You pay for the sins of the past. That's how it works.
Oh, my God.
And now that we've talked about sport, if you guys didn't think we missed sports a little bit, that was 45 minutes on sports. But, yeah, that was Sports Ball. So, yeah, we missed sports.
Let's pick up the pace a little bit.
Yeah.
For your consideration.
Yes.
So news that came out today, the Oscars are going to be postponed for 2 months. In
And
addition,
that's the 2021 Oscars, which are the Oscars for this year.
right.
Yeah.
And the qualification date is going to back up 2 months as well. So
Because, by the way, I only mentioned that because I had someone ask me today, wait, when are they usually? As if they said, like, oh, we're pushing them to September from June. Like, no, this is next year.
Yeah.
And the reason that they are pushing it is
so that more movies can go out to theaters. It was going to happen end of February, early March, something like that. I don't know what Sunday it lines up with, but somewhere around there. It's going to be backed up 2 months to April, and February will be the end of the year.
Yeah.
For the Oscars. It's usually December 31st, but now end of February.
And for movie lovers, this is amazing.
Yes.
Because the traditionally dead time of the year will basically... So one of the problems we always have with seeing those Oscar movies is it also aligns with Thanksgiving and Christmas when you have a lot of shit going on. And now it'll be spread out. Because, yes, there will be stuff coming out Thanksgiving and Christmas, but then the dead time of January and February will also have all of these Oscar contender movies when we have nothing but time.
Right.
It's amazing.
And when the worst movies are usually coming out.
Yeah. It's the dumping ground of February where you put the R-rated comic book movie.
It might make sense for the Oscars to do this sort of all the time because then you push the award season to the beginning of the year. You leave... there's still going to be like blockbusters for Christmas and Thanksgiving and stuff like that. And, the summer months pretty much push all the way through until October-ish. So
the artsy-fartsy stuff can
you'd
be
have
in January and February.
Or, the October could just be like the only dead zone of the year, really. Because then, the earlier summer blockbusters are now like April.
And I was going to say October, November are now also partially holiday movies. It may not be Christmas, but you get your like Halloween slasher movies, which are coming back. Thank God for Blumhouse. And then when you hit November, you're in Christmas movie season. Yeah. I think that the one with Henry Golding and the chick from Game of Thrones.
Last Christmas.
Yeah. I thought it was so weird because it actually came out mid-November. And the whole point was that it would get a running start into the Christmas season. And I was just like, oh, who wants to go see a Christmas movie in mid-November? But
Rachel.
It did really well. Rachel wants to go see it.
Rachel wants to see a Christmas movie in the middle of July. She's like,
I
was thinking about putting up the tree.
So I had a substitute teacher in high school who kept her tree up all year round. And because of her HOA, she couldn't keep it in the window. So she hung it upside down in her garage, which I think may also have been some sort of satanic ritual to try and bring Christmas all year round. And I feel like Rachel's going to turn into that lady. That's my point. She's going to turn into that lady at some point.
Well, I hope she's not listening. In addition, theaters are opening in the state of opening, depending on where you are in the country.
Even California.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Tenet is sort of the big movie that's looking to reopen theaters, if you will.
Yes.
Push back another 2 weeks, but hopefully we'll be able to see that like in an actual theater here at some point.
And here's what upsets me, because it was a tentpole for the summer, but it wasn't a Marvel tentpole.
Right.
We could have still gone on a Friday night and enjoyed that movie. We're not going to be able to now. The talkers are going to go see this movie.
I'm worried about just generally people going back into normal society a little bit. And more than that, I'm just worried that like, I don't know. I feel like the first month of theaters being open again is just going to be very treacherous. treacherous.
Don't get me wrong. I will mask up and go to a 1 a.m. showing on Saturday night of Tenet. 100%.
Yeah.
I will not be there Friday at 8 p.m. because
Right.
one, everyone who wants to see a new movie who hasn't seen a new movie will be there, which means the talkers will be there and the people who don't really care about the movie but just want to do something will be there. And I don't want those people. And even at 25 or 50% capacity, I will be bothered, and Corey will definitely be bothered by those people. So we will end up hoping for, fingers crossed, a 1 a.m. Black Panther type showing of Tenet. When we saw Black Panther opening weekend, no, it was the Thursday after opening weekend.
No, it was opening weekend.
Was it opening weekend?
Yeah.
And we were the only people in the theater until 2 minutes before it started when one other guy came in
And sat next to
down
us.
right next to us to watch it.
It's just like, God damn it, man. Come on.
And it wasn't a big theater; it was a smaller theater, but still,
It was still like 100 seats, though. Like,
there's a lot of seats
he had
here,
choices.
bro. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to that. Honestly, I want theaters to be reopened. I'm looking forward to new stuff coming out again.
Not even the buffer seat, too. That was the part
know,
that
just
bothered me. So, like,
right.
right next to me. Like,
God.
if I walk into a theater and I like see a seat I want to sit in, I consider the buffer seats.
Yeah.
Because just generally speaking, I don't want to be up on somebody else's shit. Like,
I also consider the buffer row. If there's nobody in any row, I'm like, all right, that's a seat, but it's too close. I'll go one row, maybe 2 rows up.
Yeah.
I'll be in an equivalent seat. Okay. No. This is the seat I want. I am sitting there. You guys can move if you want to. Which, by the way,
I would be worried that if we moved, he'd move on.
I mean, maybe he just didn't have any friends. We should have probably talked to him. But hey, you got to come before 2 minutes before the movie because once it starts rolling, Corey's got rules, and we got to follow those rules.
Once the lights go down.
But speaking of reopening, COVID cases are going up.
Yeah.
Now, California, luckily, we are not seeing the huge spike that they were thinking was going to happen based on the first post-Memorial Day testing.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that there was a bit of like, we weren't testing anybody for a couple days, and then a bunch of tests came in. Wow, we got a big spike. It is going up, but hopefully it's not going to be as drastic. But I thought it was interesting that you were right in a point you made earlier, that every other country seems to have a huge spike. It comes back down. So nobody's going back to zero.
Right. It plateaus to some level.
Very low level.
Whether it's half of what the spike was or 10% of what the spike was.
We, in America, had a huge spike, which then got a little bit of a peak in it. And as soon as we got to the other side of the peak, we just reopened everything.
Yeah.
And now we're going back up. And you can't even really call it a second wave because
It's a continuation of the first.
it really is a continuation.
Well, and the other thing is that, like, people, it seemed like part of the country was like Arizona, for instance. They were like, we haven't been getting coronavirus cases. Why are we shutting down? Why are we doing any of this shit? We're just going to keep living our lives like we have been because we're clearly coronavirus can't live in Arizona. It's too hot.
Sure.
Like,
the president said heat kills it.
yeah. So we're going to keep Arizona open. Thank you very much. And
as
then-
Corey said on the podcast here, Arizona is basically the devil's armpit. He went there in sweat from the moment he crossed the border until
Yeah.
the moment he left.
Once you hit New Mexico, it gets surprisingly better. But like literally, just go across the border. It's just better all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And then Arizona just got 3 times the amount of cases per capita than New York got at its peak.
Yep.
Which is Arizona catching up to the fact that it's still going to get coronavirus. And
Yeah.
perhaps being open like that was inviting chaos to occur. But that's the worst part. Or like one of the hardest parts, I think, for people to understand for the U.S. as like a country is that like we're not really fighting this all together. It's not like the coronavirus, the LA wave is the same as the New York wave, is the same as the Texas wave.
Yeah.
It's like somebody who's in New York and decides that they want to fly to Texas, gives it to somebody in Texas after 2 weeks. It goes to somebody, like it just keeps going like that.
We really need to think of our country the way that Europe thinks of itself. We are 50 kind of individual countries with individual policies, and we're going to see waves the way that Europe did. Germany and across the border in France had different reactions and different wave stylings on cases.
Yeah.
The same way that New York and Pennsylvania did. Just the way that it works. When you have a local government that's able to say different rules, that's what happens.
Yeah.
And California has avoided a lot of it because we've been shut down. But so I saw a tweet. The tweet of the week related to coronavirus this week was like, oh, I like how we had to stay inside for 3 weeks. And then everybody was just like, oh, I'm bored of this. Okay, everything's open, I guess. Because that's kind of how it feels. There's nothing that said we're in a place that we can reopen. We really just got bored of being in quarantine, and now everything's going to reopen again.
Well, that, and I think that openings have sort of seemed to follow with how the state of California or whatever state is getting pressure from legal threats.
Yes.
From different.
I mean,
like,
but to me,
I'm pretty sure the Monday after when hotels and stuff like that were allowed to open was going to be when the judge was going to have an immediate or emergency injunction about whether or not the hotels could be closed because of the coronavirus.
Yeah.
Or if they could policy themselves kind of thing, you know?
Yeah.
And right before that happened, Newsom was like, oh, we were going to open up hotels. So that lawsuit is obviously not like an emergency thing anymore. And that sort of backs up the thing. Much like we talked about Maryland, like their unemployment got fucking hammered.
Yeah.
And nobody was getting unemployment because the system was not set up for that many people being unemployed at the same time.
And then they reopened.
They were just like, oh, no, it's fine. We're going to get
reopen.
back to it.
Yeah. I mean, basically, another tweet. The All Lives Matter crowd shouting All Lives Matter when it was talking about grandma dying last week because the economy's got to be reopened.
Yeah.
And then they spent 2 weeks shouting All Lives Matter at the Black Lives Matter movement. And now we're getting back to the... Well, I know, fuck grandma. Grandma could die. I need to get a haircut already. Which, by the way, just have somebody in your house cut your hair.
Just
Worked
have
out
Roxy
fine
do
for
it.
me. Worked out fine. Although, by the way, it's already growing out. I think I might actually just buzz it down.
Just to like the scalp or something like that?
Yeah.
Do a GI
I don't know
chain?
that I'm going to bick it. Bicking is a lot. And the widow's peaks are, by the way, the short hair at 10 and the short hair at 36 are much different. Look how far I can pull it back and it's still forehead. Oh my gosh. Anyway, yeah, just have somebody at your house do it. Get a pair of trimmers.
Unfortunately, I have curly hair, so
I mean, I don't know if you watched the video, which is available on my YouTube channel, but you use the scissors first and then you buzz it.
right. But with curly hair, there's a lot more you have to consider. I don't have time to get into it. I'm just saying. Every time I go in, they say I got to charge you more because it's curly, and I'm just like, got it.
I mean, I don't think that's true.
I don't feel like I've been lied to this whole time.
I'll go with you for your first haircut and confirm whether or not that's the case. But one thing we don't have to confirm, and maybe one thing that the president wishes he had confirmed, is where does his Supreme Court justice nominees stand on issues? Because big case came down this week.
Real quick, I'd like to do the blind read.
Okay.
Well, first let's do the case. Let's
Yes.
do the case. So, it's a person. I didn't get the details of whether or not the person is identifying as male or female. So excuse me.
Well, let's use they.
Okay.
We'll use the they here, meaning a single person who is transgendered, but we're unclear about whether they're male transgendering to or moving to female or female moving to male.
Fair enough.
Instead, we'll use they.
Yeah. They sent out an email to everyone at work saying, hey, just so you know, come Monday, I'm going to start my transition. So I would appreciate these pronouns. I would appreciate that you understand where I'm coming from, if I look different or if I'm doing something different or if I ask you to call me a different name or any number of these things. A heads up email to the office. That person was fired.
Yes.
That case over whether or not they were allowed to be fired for announcing that they were transgender went all the way up to the Supreme Court, where it was ruled on today and was, oh God, I don't know if it was upheld or if it was.
I think it was overturned. I think it was on appeal about the lower state saying, no, this is not a violation of the Civil Rights Act.
Basically, transgender rights are roped into the Civil Rights Act.
Yes.
And that was the decision that was handed down today. In a 6-3 decision.
Yes. And I heard that number and I was like, wait, what? Okay. Like 5-4 you might have got me on, or like a 4-3-2, like some sort of Republican split where they couldn't come to a consensus. So the strong liberal side of the court held it. Not 6'3".
Yeah.
Did not see 6'3" coming.
And I would like to, if you didn't hear who voted where,
Yes.
I would like to read the lead opinion of the preserving opinion. Is that the
No, it is the it's a controlling opinion, but it is the majority opinion.
majority opinion?
Yes.
When the express terms of a statute give us one answer and extra textual considerations suggest another, it's no contest. Only the written word is the law, and all persons are entitled to its benefit. An employer who fires an individual for being homosexual or transgender fires that person for traits or actions it would not have questioned in members of a different sex. And therefore, the employer is in violation of the Civil Rights Act and the law.
Yes.
So that was the decision. Just everybody who's listening to this right now, take a second. Think about your favorite Supreme Court justice. Who do you think it was? And Gorsuch. It was fucking Gorsuch.
You were thinking Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yeah.
I know you were.
You thought it was Kagan? You
Nah.
thought it was Sotomayor?
Nah.
No, it wasn't. It was fucking Gorsuch.
Wait, and who
which is
nominated Gorsuch? That must have been Clinton, right?
Trump.
Oh, okay.
That was the seat that was going to be, fuck it. What's his face? I already forgot. Merrick Garland.
Merrick Garland.
Yeah, it was going to be Garland's seat, but McConnell wouldn't hear any proposals, so it became Gorsuch. And Gorsuch was seen to be the second coming of Scalia. And in a way, they're correct, because both Scalia and Gorsuch are very into textualism, which is the exact word-by-word reading of the Constitution.
However, Scalia is a strict constructionist, and you would find Gorsuch to be more of a textualist.
Yeah.
And that might not make a difference in a lot of cases, but in a case like this, it actually does. So a constructionist will take in outside information, but only that information that was at the time of the law's passing.
Mm-hmm.
So this really came into impact when it's First Amendment, Fourth Amendment, Second Amendment cases, because it's like, well, what was the intention at the time? Not how we read it now. What was the intention at the time?
Right.
Whereas Gorsuch, ironically, is even more strict than that. And he says, what is the text? But we get lucky when you have law that was written by people like Lyndon Johnson, who spent his whole life writing legislation and was very specific about the wording that was used and terminology used and what's actually in the law. Which, by the way, will suck for anything challenged that was created in the last 20 years, because they are the laziest lawmakers in the world now.
Yeah.
And they're all written by other people. And then
Well, they're written by the people, the
APAC.
Well,
Or
yeah,
CPAC.
or whatever trade group is trying to win favor.
Yeah.
Like, if it's a medical bill, it's going to be written by pharmaceutical companies and insurance companies. That's how it's going to be done. Somebody in the boardroom of the insurance company is writing that bill. But yes, this is number one, great news for all my friends in the LGBTQ plus community.
Yeah.
Especially with the fucking awfulness with Trump deciding to take away protections on the anniversary of the Pulse nightclub shooting, which almost doesn't seem like a coincidence.
No.
Seeing as we had the Tulsa Juneteenth thing going on at the same
No,
time.
that was
as well.
there's some kind of scheduling error, all right? We didn't know, okay? It's not like he celebrates Juneteenth.
We were wondering why the venue was open that day. Not a lot of big political rallies wanted to come in on that day. And
Tulsa?
Tulsa.
Juneteenth? Really? All right, well, let's do it.
We thought it was going to be a day off, but no. It's wonderful news in that regard. It's this ruling in particular sort of is specifically highlighting a trans issue, but the generalized reading of it is that this would apply for other protected classes who aren't necessarily trans.
Yes.
So if you, under the same pretense, if this was, I've come out and I've decided that I'm going to let the whole office know I'm gay, and that way if you see my boyfriend come, you're not confused. Everyone knows I'm gay now. Then, or that I'm telling everyone that I'm gay now. Then they can... hypothetically, the same sort of protections would apply in that case, if it went up the chain, you know.
And that is kind of the question whether or not it puts some kind of new test that do gay and lesbians meet that test. The way that you put it, my boyfriend came to visit me at work and I got fired because of that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because what Gorsuch is saying here is that you would not fire someone else
If my girlfriend came, yeah.
or if a girl had her boyfriend come. So now
Right.
you've drawn a line that violates based on sex. The question is, is just being gay enough? The text of this case is just announcing that someone is transgendered. So I think that there'll probably be a qualifying case. The problem is I don't know that anyone's going to bring it because conservatives will be too afraid that they lose it and then there is no gray area anymore. And liberals will be too afraid that they lose it and then we actually need more legislation. Because right now...
Or more clarifying judgments from the court.
Right now, it basically says we don't need an equal rights amendment. We don't need an LGBTQ amendment. We don't need anything additional because all of those protections that we would look for elsewhere can be brought in under the Civil Rights Amendment.
Yeah.
And as long as that's still good law, which who knows,
Yeah.
but as long as it's still good law, then we're okay. And I say who knows because Congress let the Voting Rights Act expire. So who knows what's going to happen with the Civil Rights Act. But
and then one other thing, just because we're talking about the courts, we had talked a couple weeks ago about how they were considering a case about qualified immunity and
because
police
there
officers.
were dueling cases going up on qualified immunity, and it seems like it's the kind of thing the court would want to decide.
And they've decided not to, so it's not on the schedule for October.
So let me kind of give some context for that. The reason they wouldn't do that is also because Congress has said they want to address qualified immunity as part of their greater, let's talk about policing in America.
Yeah.
And the courts have historically said, we don't want to make new legislation from the bench.
Right. Let them have a crack at it. And then,
Yes.
Yeah.
They have before, but essentially what they did, the progression of civil rights was Brown versus Board of Education ruled that segregation, separate but equal, is not good law. And there were other cases that came up to establish how we can make equality. But the courts refused to take those cases because Congress was saying, we are going to come up with a piece of civil rights legislation.
Right.
So the courts let it happen, let time pass, and we got the Civil Rights Act. Now, Brown versus Board of Education was 1958, I think, 59. Civil Rights Act was 65. That seems like a long time, and it is a long time when you're waiting for it. But when it comes to governance, that is kind of light speed. We went from Jim Crow to Civil Rights Act in 7 years.
The fact that, and speaking to the protests and what's been happening because of it, a lot has fallen really quickly and almost unbelievably quickly. I wouldn't have thought going in that the protests would be as impactful as they are. But people are really holding the line, and I appreciate it. And
I'm going to call back to the beginning of this episode, though, because the difficulty is the things that have changed might be those points of consensus where we are not that far apart, and let's give on those first. Okay, the harder talk, the harder work is going to be done down the road.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you have to renegotiate with
police
unions. Yeah.
I think 40 states have police bill of rights that give them a separate bill of rights other than citizens.
Yeah.
Which are now questioned. Why do they have more protections than the average citizen?
Well, and I mean, like, at the end, much like we could say about baseball with the players union and having a lot of power when it came to not getting drug testing.
Yeah.
On any kind of, it makes sense. You would think that if you were a fan and you wanted the sport to be clean, the players would want all the players to be clean and they'd fight for that. But they didn't fight for that.
No.
And because of that, it fucked a lot of players. So it's not necessarily about like unions being good or bad. It's about like what levels some unions take to get certain things that aren't necessarily beneficial for the long-term sustainability of the union.
Yeah.
This is what happened with the auto workers to an extent because people were like, okay, we want to bail out Ford and Chevy and all these other companies, but we can't if somebody's getting paid $87 an hour to sleep, and you can't fire them because they're in a union contract that is so impossibly difficult to get rid of that this person literally sleeps all day and gets paid. And that was the first, and don't mistake people who criticize unions as like trying to work for the betterment of the worker, because a lot of people who criticize unions don't like unions or don't like organized labor. But it's important, I think, that while this opportunity has presented itself with police unions, that everyone take a look at their own house, because this is a thing that could blow up 100 different ways if it wanted. There's teachers unions that are frayed at the edge because some people are against the sort of seniority of teachers unions.
I am insanely pro-labor. However, some teachers unions have too much power, and bad teachers can't be fired. And that is, you should not protect the worst in your ranks. You should look at the union as a way to strengthen the profession and make it better. And protect your people, yes, from things like...
From reasonable exceptions of getting fired. Like
Mr. Jones wants to be Mrs. Jones. That's fine. And we should work to protect their rights to do that. But Mr. Jones sleeps all 4 periods of the day and his kids don't learn anything. We should be able to fire him.
Right.
Or put him on a path of either being a better teacher or getting fired.
And I mean, like, that's the same thing that people are basically saying with the police unions.
Absolutely.
Like, the idea of the good cop is not wrong. Like, we all have people who are police officers who are friends or family, and they're well-meaning and they're not causing trouble.
Yeah.
But they also don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to call out the people who are doing bad things on the force, because it's them against everybody else that they do that.
Yeah.
And it's not worth it if you are, one person in the Tuscaloosa Police Department. Not to pick on Tuscaloosa, but
the only difference is a teacher does a bad job or an auto worker does a bad job. It sucks, drives up prices, makes the profession look bad, but nobody dies.
Yeah.
So we are now talking about police and not teachers, although we should talk about teachers and we should talk about auto unions and everything else. Right now we're going to talk about police and doing something about policing.
Speaking of police, just real quick.
Yeah.
The Baltimore City Council had their vote tonight on what they were going to do. And even though Brandon Scott is now effectively the mayor.
Effectively, yes.
Jack Young decided not to listen to a single thing he said and was pushing through every single bit of the police budget he could.
Yep.
So there's that.
So enjoy one more year, Baltimore Police Department, because I have a feeling it's going to be different next year.
Someone tells me that Brandon Scott's already scheming his cuts. He's already.
Yeah. So this might be the time for the police to be like, you know what? We're actually on board with moving this grant money around and giving you some oversight. So how about that, Brandon?
It'd be wonderful if it happened. They're
not going to do it.
Not gonna happen.
They're not going to do it. The FOP will go out and with a straight face say, listen, there's nothing wrong with cops planting guns. We know they're bad people.
You know your organization is on treacherous land when the New York Union police chief is like, show us a little respect. And it's just like, I'm watching it and I'm just like, dude, read the room.
Yeah. And by the way, the only ones you can get out there are every white police officer. There is no people of color whatsoever.
There was literally one black guy behind.
Yeah.
At least Trump brings that guy up front. Like, it's like,
bring him up next to you, man.
Sit next to me, Ben Carson. Like, come on.
Why is he in the back of your crowd? But speaking of Trump, interesting week for him. Personal issues first.
Okay.
He gave a speech at West Point. He was shuffling down a ramp, and then earlier he had a problem drinking out of a glass. He lifted it with his left hand. No. Yes,
right hand, and then sort of did the little
alley-oop
with the left.
Yes, had to give himself a little assist. And people are saying many things. One of them is, did he have a stroke? I can tell you, having seen someone who survived a stroke, that is behavior I saw. Now, does that mean the president had a stroke? No. It could be a lot of other things other than that. But it could also be that we have a 74-year-old man who is in his first term and is looking to be a 78-year-old president, which I think would make him the oldest president sitting at that time. because he is the
Yeah.
oldest president in the first term right now.
Right.
Which means that there are presidents who are older, but they got older in their second term.
I mean, Reagan's the oldest president at any point in time, right?
I think, right? And he was like 77.
Like he had the highest age of anybody who served as a president.
Yeah.
I think.
And if the math is right, that means that we are in the election year. So, yeah, so Trump would be 78. He would be the oldest president. But one of the things I mentioned was Reagan, towards the end of his second term, you could see that he was starting to go away.
Yeah.
And people were concerned about that. And it may have been a factor in electing Clinton and then Bush and then Obama, where we went like a younger, let's look for a younger guy. And luckily, the Democrats are responding to this because we have nominated an outstandingly young guy who is exactly the same age as the guy who is currently president. So,
and great news, he was responsible for the crime bill that got us in large part to where we are right now.
Yeah,
so.
and is unapologetic about it now because he seems to be pretty pro-police now.
And just,
in another case of read the room, dude.
And just wait for him to ruin it all when he announces Amy Klobuchar as his vice president. Yay.
Yeah. So I don't know if the president had a stroke, but all I'm saying is I was saying Pete Buttigieg, not just because of the things he was saying in his campaign, but because we need a guy. We need a Teddy. We need a Jack. We need somebody in their 40s to just give us one, a young guy.
What really worries me about the idea of the Trump stroke, and I'm not trying to diagnose him from here because I don't know shit. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
I don't feel comfortable making kind of assumptions about it. What I will say though is that what worries me, given how much apologizing on behalf of him already happens, like I would hate to think that he actually gets to the point where he's full on stroke, like full on.
He's lost it.
He's incapable of running the country, and he's still going to be out there because what are we going to do? Give it to Pence or like, and it's like, oh, he's strong and virile and you don't know any better. And like,
he will never admit it.
Like Kim Jong-un when he disappears for a while, like our North Korean leader where it's like disappears and it's just like, he might be dead. Like,
no, he's strong and virile more than ever. He was riding 2 horses bareback. You have no idea.
Kim Jong-il hasn't been seen in 5 weeks. Oh, well, we got this video of him riding 2 horses, like one on each foot.
Yeah.
So there you go.
This undated
How
video.
sick is he?
But and that's the problem. He will never step down, no matter how bad he was doing.
Yeah.
And can you get a majority of his secretaries to agree that he is unfit for office? Probably not.
I mean, it would have to be, like vegetable level, I think. Like it would have to be so clear he can't operate that like
that is what the level it reaches. It reaches like incapacitation because him just being crazy. I'm not the one.
I mean, it's not the same era, but like FDR for the last couple of years effectively was, Eleanor was the shadow president is what they would say.
You're thinking of Woodrow Wilson. He was incapacitated. FDR was bedridden, but he had all of his faculties until he had the heart attack that killed him. Woodrow Wilson had a stroke likely on a train going to Seattle, and his wife was probably the first female president because she said, no one gets access to him but me, and then would take bills into him, and they would have notes on them when she brought them out, and then whenever anybody saw him, he couldn't move his hands. So everybody was asking, where did the notes come from? So, but yeah, I don't even know. It would have to reach that point because I don't think that anyone asked the question. Not one of his secretaries, by that I mean, of course, the secretaries of the departments,
right,
would have the balls to go to anyone else and be like, so he's looking bad, right? Because immediately you're worried that guy's going to go to the president and then the president's going to oust me. That's it.
Well, I mean, like it's the type of thing that I part of the reason why I don't think he's necessarily having the stroke is because he seemed normal other than that. Like other than the having trouble lifting the glass and the walking down the ramp slowly.
Always standing like a stork?
Well, I mean, he's been doing that for
an alien in a human body.
He's been doing that for 70 years. So yes,
not being able to tie his tie to a correct length.
I mean, all these things are things we already know. So yeah, I mean, like I just feel like those are the only things different. So I'm not trying to apologize or be an apologist for the man, but like he could be dealing with something stupid that like You know, like every once in a while, my shoulder's fucked up, and I don't feel like I can lift my arm up all the way.
Yeah.
So maybe he like slept weird. Now his shoulder's fucked up and his hips fucked up, and it's not enough to like make him stop from going to West Point, but he's gonna need a little help with the glass. He's gonna need a little help down the ramp. I'm not saying that a stroke is a possible thing that could happen, but I'm not.
Maybe Melania made him sleep on the couch, which I think is a high possibility.
I mean, apparently she had him renegotiate the prenup. So, that's right. I meant to ask that.
Yeah.
At a just a quick 30-second legal take here.
Yes.
If you had a client who was going to become first lady,
Yes.
is this a advantageous position to be renegotiating a prenup?
But
I mean, like,
without the agreement of both parties, you can't do it, so it doesn't matter.
but it sounded like a lot of this was I'm not coming to the White House, and neither is Barron until this is resolved, which is why she was in New York for the first.
And now
5
you
months
have
of
power because it's about how it looks. Just
Right.
like she could have divorced him, but he would be a president going through a divorce, and that would be embarrassing. So renegotiating the prenup better than in private, better than the public embarrassment. So yeah, I mean, you're in the power position because you can embarrass him. Now, for many presidents, they would not have cared. Like, I don't negotiate with terrorists, whether they're in the Middle East or in my bedroom. I don't negotiate with them. But he really cares about how people see him.
Yeah.
So she knows she's got him because, we stayed in New York to finish the school year for Barron, but that's going to get embarrassing after a while, sweetie. So let's talk about this prenup. And you got it.
Yeah.
Another thing that a crazy president might do is send a cease and desist order to a newspaper citing that their survey was
News organization.
sorry, was incorrect, and using the support of another survey taking group, which has been shown to fraudulently
be incorrect.
issue their survey. So it's a weird thing. It's like
I liked when 538 got involved because 538 literally like ranks pollsters on how good they are, and they're just like, CNN isn't the best. They're a somewhat reliable poll, enough so that if you mentioned it in casual conversation, you don't look like an idiot for spouting these opinions. The person that Trump mentioned is literally the worst ranked poller in our.
That's the one that everybody laughs at you when you cite that poll.
Yeah.
It's like, Trump up by 17%. Wait, what? Where'd you get that?
TrumpForAmerica.com said this.
Okay, all right, yeah.
Who would you rather vote for? President Donald Trump or the pervy Joe?
Yeah, so
President Trump. One of those three options. Which is it? It's just like, I don't remember what the middle one was. All right, so for number one, Trump. Yeah, you got it.
But I just love that CNN responded to that by basically a legalized version of fuck yourself, and nothing more came of it. Like the press secretary brought it up again, but that was it.
Here's what's amazing is that it's just not even being able to see the optics of it, because this is the type of thing that like Erdogan does, or like some like banana republic in Central America or South America or something like that.
Yeah,
somebody who's like desperately trying to hold on to their kingdom, and it's like, no, you're lying. I have 100% support. Everyone knows it. Like anytime you see a poll out of like Russia where it's like Putin has 98% support, it's like,
maybe.
Something tells me they didn't poll everyone equally on that one.
But the difference is Trump wishes he were that kind of guy, because then he wouldn't even just file the lawsuit.
Well, I mean, the way you get to that
them.
point is you start by causing chaos and making people not believe in the polls that were coming up. That's why these dictators are so quick to do the same sort of tactic when CNN releases a poll saying like.
I posted it on Instagram, the 12 stages of entering a dictatorship, and you are here. Like, we're working our way down the list, and this is one of the steps, making the media, and I mean not this, but making the media seem illegitimate. So when they start reporting worse stuff, you're like, I've been calling them fake news for 12 years. Well, there's no reason that we would murder all those kids.
That happens right now, because if I send an article to somebody and it says New York Times, then they'll be like, oh, I don't trust this.
Yep, fake news.
The paper of record.
The question is, are they going to trust John Bolton or Trump's own daughter when the reporting comes out?
Sister-in-law.
Sorry, Trump's sister when the reporting comes out.
I mean, I would hope both.
Especially when John Bolton gives us teasers like, "Ooh, you have no idea."
My favorite part about Bolton's Bolton is releasing a book. It got lost in the shuffle because the whole world decided to start protesting right during the middle of his media tour. So he's gonna have to back that one up a little bit.
Yeah, but still midsummer, way before the election. Don't worry.
He'll find a way before the convention to get this out there. But a little teaser of that had come out saying that the Democrats were dumb for going through with impeachment the way they did. Not because he wasn't guilty of everything that he was accused of with the Ukraine, but he's done.
He was.
Because he was. He most certainly was. I was in the room. I saw it happen. I know what he did. Everything that was reported is accurate.
Yeah.
So if you would have called me as a witness, I would have told you that. But in addition, I would have told you he's also done way more illegal things. Like this is barely scratching the surface of his unconstitutional illegal behavior. And read the book to find out more. That's the Bolton approach right now. So
maybe he's gonna call the book "What I Would Have Charged." The John Bolton story.
What I would have done if I wasn't a sniveling jerk.
Oh man,
my personal letters to Nancy Pelosi. I don't know. Like Bolton, in as much as he was in the room for a lot of these conversations, and he was around Trump, so I'm sure he has plenty of things to say.
I'm sure.
I also feel like Bolton has a long history of swooping in to try and enrich himself in whatever manner possible.
I mean, he's a Republican, so that does track.
If he's trying to make some money, I would imagine the best way of doing it is saying there's more illegal things than what you know, because then people are going to buy the book to find out what those illegal things are.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Maybe or maybe not, they will be in there.
Well, so we have the one side covered, the president and all the illegal actions covered by Bolton's book. And then if you had any questions about his personal life, well, the sister's got you covered with her book coming out just 1 week after that. So,
and that one's and I think it's sister-in-law, isn't it?
I don't know. I honestly do not care.
It's Fred Trump Jr.'s wife, I think.
Okay, well, whatever.
If I remember correctly. Or it might be I don't remember. Anywho.
In the end, if it was Melania, Republicans would not believe it, and Democrats would take it as gospel, so it doesn't matter.
But she basically has been holding a grudge since Fred Trump Jr. was sort of kicked out of the family for his alcoholism, which admittedly Trump, and the only thing that ever makes him look human when he talks for 10 to 12 seconds about his brother with alcoholism.
Yeah.
The only time you ever even see the little wave of empathy like crest over his thought process, where he's just like, wish I was better. Anyway, more about me. Like,
he also frames it in the I had to cut him out of the family.
Yeah.
It was my decision. I did it. Wish I didn't have to do it. But I did it.
He was weak, not strong like me. I wish I did more, but he was weak.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, this seems interesting as well, in as much as apparently a lot of the basis of reporting of any Trump tax document story from the New York Times, from Maddow, from all these different sources has been coming from Mary Trump at the end of it. So maybe it's a take care of me or else I keep talking, Donald kind of situation, because
that'd be my guess.
I feel like there's never been an easier president to blackmail than the current one. He would jump at the opportunity to do something illegal to cover it up. Like,
yep.
At least during the Obama years, you had to do your blackmailing in private. Like
I would be slightly.
You'd
concerned.
have to be in the room with Barack and just be like, "Listen, it'd be real bad if this got out there." And I just go on Twitter going like, "Hey, by the way, I'm about to publish a book in case you want to stop me."
I'd be real concerned that he would jump over the payment and go directly to paying the hitman to kill me, though, because he also seems the type to do that. I don't know.
Get fucking Bill Barr on it.
Bill, need a hitman. Whoa, Mr. President, I can't.
Number
okay.
one.
Never mind.
Number one, it's already a problem that you told me that. Number two, now that we're this far, what kind of hitman do you want?
Forget. Okay, Bill. I got it. Okay. What are the
He
tactics?
looks over at a lawyer. He's just like, it's technically illegal already, right? All right. So
Right.
what kind of hitman do you want?
All right. So forget about the hitman. What are the tactics for deploying SEAL Team 6 within the continental United States, specifically to my sister-in-law's apartment in New York?
In
What would I have to do?
Manhattan.
You remember that whole video with Obama or Osama? What I really like is for that, only with somebody else who's an American citizen living in the United States. What can we do about that?
Feel free to throw her naked in the sea, too. I don't care. Oh, and if you want more timely jokes than that, you know where you go?
Where's that?
OhTheAnthem.com. Corey to OhTheAnthem.com. OhTheAnthem on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and the listener line, 443-219-7595.
What's that number again?
443-219-7595. And you can find more of me at my website, CoreyBakerFilmmaker.com, Facebook.com/CoreyBakerFilm, at LegendCB5 on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. And a new review is out for The Five Bloods, which was very good and worth checking out. It's on Netflix, so go scurry and go do that because it's enjoyable.
You've never sounded more white than when you say the title of that movie.
I've noticed.
The Five Bloods.
No, I noticed when I listened when I was editing it, like my the and duh sound very similar. So sometimes it did sound like I was saying the Five Bloods, but I knew like I was like, you don't want to put too much stink on it because then it looks like,
The Five Bloods.
you know, you don't want to make it seem like you're leaning into it. You know, so
yeah, fair enough. And don't let Corey let you sleep on the fact that his brand new track is available now.
oh yes.
Corona Anthem, CB5 featuring CVD, available now on SoundCloud. So go check out that video to come this week with yet another take coming, a remix, if you will, coming this Friday, featuring yet another artist. Actually,
the Slim Shady edition.
it's the Slim Shady-ish edition featuring both CVD and CB5 in a supporting role because we couldn't get that dude to actually do that.
Do the chorus.
The chorus. He just was focused on the only on the whatchamacallit verses.
The verses,
Only
yeah.
on the verses, yeah. But anyway, of course, you can find more of me at Robert and Cheek at all your social networks. Make sure you check out robertandcheek.com where you can find links to everything that I do, including the YouTube videos. It's youtube.com/RobCheek. You'll find the Everyman movie reviews there. You'll find videos of all the parody tracks that we do, including Corona Anthem, the original, and the remake with CB5 featuring CVD, as well as all the previous parodies that we've done. And you can find more of the personal videos, like the haircut videos available there. And, my June vlog entry where I talk about white privilege and how it has impacted my life. So that is it's a bit of a movie. It's a bit of a video anyway. And of course you can find links to the books, which are available on Amazon.
Barrow's books.
Thank you. And we are working at getting all of them back up on Amazon. I know some of them aren't available now, but they will be very soon. And you can find everything else at robertandcheek.com. Oh, even though it's under construction. So more coming later. And of course, more coming from us as the year goes on too. We've got a plan in place. We're moving forward with new content. We've got new equipment. Do you have... Where is it over?
It's over there.
Oh,
It's
never
all right.
mind. Okay, it's out of camera range. Got new equipment. We got a bunch of everything. So we're excited for what the summer has in store once we can get out and start filming stuff.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've done good here today.
We've done something. I don't know if it's good. But as always, you're listening to the Oh The Anthem podcast, part of the Oh The Anthem digital network. For Corey, this is Rob. Have a great week, everybody.
And now we have to write a new parody track. Got to figure out the next one here.
Already got it.
Oh, do you?
Mm-hmm. Bringing in a female perspective this time.
Ooh.
Ooh. Ooh. Ooh. Teaser.
Can I be the girl?